Hello. Welcome to Miss Peeper's Reading Corner. I'm Katrina, aka Miss Peeper's, totally prepared. Totally prepared today. Look, it's been a long week. We had a holiday last week, so it was like the first full work week in a while. There were a couple of other activities and things going on. So anyway, I'm back. I'm here. Let's talk about books. So I am participating in the Amazing Readathon right now. I'm on the Lore Keeper team, so pretty excited about that. Go Lore Keepers. And we are in the second leg of the readathon. I am totally organized, like I said. Oh man. So this readathon, look, sometimes you just get what you get, you know. This readathon is it's got 10 legs to it. It's loosely based on The Amazing Race, although which I've never actually seen, to be honest, but the competition show. And I linked below in the description the video from Bree at Four Paws in a Book, who created this readathon. I will let you watch that video. It is, if you're watching this on the day that I'm posting it, which is June 5th, it is not too late to join and catch up. We're only on our second prompt right now. So I thought I'd just give a little update on where I am in reading right now. So for the first leg, the prompt was to read a book with a green cover. That's right. So I read The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. This is technically, I think, considered a children's book, although because it was published in 1911, it's definitely more, the prose is, it's not hard to read, but it's definitely something that's a little bit more, I guess, condensed than we would have in a children's book, or even like a middle grade in the modern time, which is not a bad thing, honestly. I think, in this era of screens and devices in your pocket, I think it's probably often a little bit harder to get kids to sit down and focus on a book that has fairly small, intense text. And this copy too. This edition that I found at a used bookstore randomly. Like everything one finds at a used bookstore, it's all random. I was actually kind of surprised that the text was so small. I don't know why the Sweetwater Press made that choice, but here we are. Of course, I'm not a child, I'm an adult, so I had no problem reading it. And so anyway, but let me tell you what this book is about. So disorganized. So you're getting disorganized peeps today. So this book is about a girl who, as I said, it was written in the early 1900s, and I think it's set then as well. But it's a girl whose family lives in India. She's India as part of the British Empire, when it was part of the British Empire. And her parents both die of cholera, and so she is shipped back to England to live in her uncle's house. And she gets there, and her uncle really doesn't even want to see her. He doesn't want anything to do with her. It's more of those like, well, it's a relative, so I'm taking this relative in. This family, by the way, has a fair amount of money, so that's relevant. They are wealthy. And so he decides to ignore this child, but he takes her in and is like, go live in there. There's a room, go live there. And this girl, Mary is her name, she's already fairly spoiled. She was an only child. She wasn't around other children. And because her family was wealthy, they had a lot of servants. And in India, when it was part of the British Empire, there was a very strict caste system with the British people at the top. So that's not really examined in this book, but it's present. And so she is accustomed to basically having servants who will cower before her because she is the mistress's daughter, kind of thing. And when she gets to Yorkshire, which is where her uncle lives, to her new home, she is surprised to find that English servants don't do that. And And while they take good care of her, they are not. Sorry, I've got something in my eye. While they take good care of her, they are not. They are not obsequious either. They don't grovel in the way that she's accustomed to from the staff, and so she gets a fair amount of tough love from these various people who like do feel bad for her because they know she's an orphan, but also she's kind of a brat, and so they're like, well, you can't behave like that. And so they sort of gently nudge her in a more well socialized direction. And then she also discovers, or she hears that there is a garden on the grounds that is locked. The key has been buried, and it was her aunt's garden, so her uncle is widowed. And it was his wife's garden that he locked up when she died because he was grieving so much. And so Mary decides she's going to find this garden. She hears this garden exists. She's going to go find it. And it's just it becomes a really sweet story about this little girl, and she eventually meets her cousin as well. But these kids that don't really, they're very isolated. They don't have much in the way of family, and they find each other, and they find others who live in the area. Like one of the housemaids, her brother, her younger brother, who does not work at the house, but becomes friends with Mary and with Colin, the cousin. And it becomes this found family story. And I really liked that. And this is something that I watched the movie when I was a kid. I remember watching the movie when I was a kid. I don't remember ever reading the book. I don't think I ever read it until just last week. And it's just a really sweet story that what I liked about it in particular is that these children aren't like these perfect cherubic little, like, angel type characters. They are incredibly flawed, and they are flawed for real reasons. So they're not just bratty kids, but they are like specifically going through some things. Mary was spoiled when her parents were alive, and also like both spoiled and kind of neglected. And then Colin is also neglected, and ill. He's an invalid, and so there's a lot of growth that happens with both of these characters as they get to know each other and also find the secrets of the hidden garden. So yeah, this is a delightful book. I highly recommend it. If you're just looking for something sweet, and just kind of nice. I will say there is a little bit, as I mentioned, the book begins in India, and because it was written in 1911, there are some stereotypes in here. It's not a big part of the book, but it's something to be aware of. Especially if you're going to read this to your children, I would just say, know what you're getting into. I am not a parent, and I'm not an expert on children, so I would not feel comfortable saying whether children should or should not read this. As it stands as a text, though I do think the story is definitely, ultimately a very positive one. So, yeah. So that's what I read for our first leg, the book with the green cover. We are still in leg 2, and I've got 2 books going because I started reading a book. Yeah. It's all near me. It's just not, usually I have everything stacked up, so like together and organized. It's been a day. All right. So I have 2 books that I started. I started first. So the prompt is to read a book with a violent word in the title. So the book I started was Murder Your Employer by Rupert Holmes, and I'm about, what is that, a quarter of the way through, somewhere between a quarter and a third, something like that, about 115 pages in. Yeah, so about a quarter, something like that. I don't know, an amount. I'm an amount in. We are on technically day 3, or coming up on the end of the second day, if you count in like 24-hour periods, of this leg, and we don't know when the next leg will drop. So I got a little concerned because I was not reading as quickly as I wanted to, although I am enjoying this book. So I also downloaded the audiobook version of Snuff by Terry Pratchett, which I'm taking as a violent word because it is a very intentional play on the word snuff, both as meaning the tobacco product, but also meaning to kill someone or to die, to kill. And so counting this as a violent word too. I'm listening to the audiobook, which is one of the newer, there was a project. I don't know if it's still ongoing or not, probably, because there are a lot of these. But there was a recent project to re-record or to record as audiobooks the entirety of Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, of which this book is one, and to with a larger cast of fairly well-known actors in many cases. So anyway, this, and of course, now I'm blanking on who actually the audiobook narrator is. I don't have my phone. I'll just check. I'll just look. So this is title details. Here we go. So this is being narrated. This is narrated by John Culshaw. I'm not actually sure who that is, but it's the footnotes, because Terry Pratchett loved his footnotes. The footnotes are all read by Bill Nighy, whom you may know from, well, from all sorts of stuff. He's in all sorts of movies. He pops up here and there. I think he was in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Why, I don't know why that was the first one to pop into my mind. He was in Love Actually. He was the rocker, the aging rock star in Love Actually. He was in Shaun of the Dead. Like, he pops up all over the place. But anyway, so this has been a delight to listen to. I have about 7 hours left of that. So I'm torn between 300 pages of the book I'm reading physically and about 7 hours of the book I'm listening to. Either way, who knows if I'll actually make it in time. But if I don't, it's okay, because you know what? While this is a competitive readathon, it is just for fun. And I will talk more about both of these books after I've finished reading them, but I'll just say what they're about, because, you know, I should probably do that. So Murder Your Employer by Rupert Holmes, who, by the way, is the guy who wrote the Pina Colada song. If you like pina coladas, you know that one. I won't sing anymore because I don't want a copyright claim. But it's the same guy. Weirdly, he also apparently writes books now. But anyway, Murder Your Employer is a book that's set in a clandestine university that trains people to kill, to murder someone. And they have very specific standards. So it's not just like anyone who wants to commit a murder, but like they have very specific standards. They have very expensive tuition. Of course, the information about this school is word of mouth, because you don't just put in an ad, want to learn how to murder someone. And so we're following a couple of students. Well, right now at the beginning where I am, we're following Cliff Iverson, and according to the prologue or the intro, there will be two other students that we follow later on in the book. But Cliff has decided he wants to murder his former employer because this man is incredibly unethical. The way he runs, it's a company that builds parts for planes, or builds airplanes, and Cliff designed a plane and put in all the appropriate safety features and that kind of thing, and found out that his boss actually changed the designs after, like, before the planes were built, to cut costs, but then that of course also reduced safety in a very specific way. And so when he calls his boss on it, he gets fired, and not just fired, he is also very much discredited. So Cliff is living in this part of the book is set in the 1950s, so at the height of the Red Scare in the United States. And so his boss plants papers on him so that he looks like he's a communist, and so he's completely disgraced. Like, he can't get a job anywhere else, and he's like, you know what, I'm just going to kill this guy. He attempts to kill his boss, his former boss, fails, and then these two guys pick him up and are like, hey, you've been sponsored by an anonymous person. At this point in the book, I have no idea who it is. I assume I'll find out Maybe not. I don't know. I think this book has a sequel. Anyway, um, but he's been sponsored to attend this school and learn how to commit this murder appropriately. But the school has very specific standards in that they won't take just anyone. They look down on like serial killers as, you know, not having finesse and not having purpose, but rather the people who are able to become students of this school are people who have a very specific reason for killing a very specific person, and it's considered more like a noble cause. And oh, I don't know if I can find it quickly, where they have a set of rules of when to determine whether to delete someone, which is the word that they use. So here we go. So there are four questions that they want people to ask before they actually commit a murder. Like, so this is part of their instruction. One, is it necessary? Is there no other remedy? Is there no other way to solve your problem? Two, have you given your target every last chance to redeem themselves? So, like, do they have an opportunity? Could they have potentially been better if you'd given them a chance? Number three, what innocent person might suffer by your actions? So people like, this person might have family, children, close friends, or something like that. Or they might be doing good in one area and doing bad things in another. And then number four is, will this deletion improve the life of others? So if you can answer all of these with, we're good. Yes, it is necessary. They haven't had a chance to redeem themselves. No one will suffer, and this will improve the lives of others. Then, according to this school, they feel like you can go forward with your assignment. And the final thesis of this course of study is, of course, the deletion that you had that you wanted to commit when you entered. And so they make people into well-rounded assassins, essentially. It's very funny the way this book is written. It is quite humorous, intentionally. It's very like satirical, tongue-in-cheek. It's got like some of the vibes of those like big school, like university style stories, and so it's pretty funny. I'm enjoying it so far. I feel like I heard someone somewhere talk about this book and say that there was something in here that was objectionable to them, but I haven't. But that's such a vague memory, and I know that's so helpful. So I don't know what I'm walking into, if there's something that's going to happen later on that might change my view of it. But at least where I am right now, at about a quarter of the way through, I'm having a good time. Terry Pratchett. I've talked about Terry Pratchett on this channel before. I love these books so much, the Discworld books, and this book Snuff is part of the City Watch sub-series within Discworld. I will probably do a video at some point in the near future up just about the City Watch series in general, because this one's actually a little bit late into that part of Discworld. And so talking about this book by itself, well, I could do it, but it would feel a little bit like I'm in the middle of a story. I do like about Discworld that the way Terry Pratchett wrote it, for the most part, you can read the books in any order. But there's definitely a trajectory, an arc throughout each of the series within Discworld. So this one follows Sam Vimes, who is the commander of the City Watch of Ankh-Morpork, and he has been asked to do something truly dreadful, which is to go on vacation. And so at this point in his storyline, he is married to Lady Sybil Ramkin, who is actually a duchess, I think. And so she comes from money. He does not. But they fall in love, and they've fallen in love in previous books. They're married. They have a young child. I think he's like 8 or 10 or something. Sam Jr., young Sam, as they call him, and so they go on this. They go on this trip to a country estate that is in Sybil's family, that they own, that Sam has never seen before, because he hasn't really gotten a chance. he works really hard, and so he hasn't had an opportunity to get out there. And I will say, and I will talk, as I said, I will have a dedicated video on the City Watch series because I really really enjoy it. But one thing that I really like about this is that there are two groups, I guess, that Sam falls into, especially at this point in the series, that could potentially be challenging for folks. One is that he's a police officer, and of course, the police force is, people have complex views and relationships with the police, understandably, and so I definitely don't want to belittle that at all. And also, of course, his wife is incredibly wealthy, so like a generationally wealthy. So that's also a challenging group of people to deal with. What I like about this series is that Terry Pratchett is satirical and critical of, he's critical of both of those groups, and even when his characters are part of it. And Sam himself was born in poverty, and he essentially ended up being a policeman. The alternative, like, he was one of those people who was so close to either living a life of crime or going into law enforcement, and he took the law enforcement path. But at the time that he was a young officer, a young recruit, the City Watch was incredibly corrupt. And so part of his story arc is rising at first, like at the beginning he's a detective and a captain, I think. Anyway, he's working his way up the ranks, but he's also reforming the City Watch as he goes and turning it into an organization that feels proud to be a part of. And he is removing the corruption, and he has a very strong moral code, and a very strong sense of ethics. And his view is that a policeman follows the law first, and that he must be above reproach. And like, there are no shortcuts. You don't take shortcuts. If you're going to arrest someone, you need to have the evidence to do so, and you have to obtain it legally. And so he's very much, but he's not. So he's very much by the book in many ways, in like a very specific, in his ethics. But he also has flexibility in other places. So like, if it fits within his moral code, he'll do it. And so he has no problem, for example, talking back to the lord of the city, and reminding him that Sam Vimes has an ancestor who cut the head off of a king, and that is like the Vimes family claim to fame. So like, and he's not afraid. He's like, look, we've got an understanding here. And so it's a very interesting view. And then this book in particular, because he's going to this country estate, he is really seeing firsthand, in a way that he doesn't see in the city, the way that his wife was brought up, the way that her family lives, and the way that wealthy people and poorer people, or like working class people, interact with each other. And so a really good example from this book is that he's the lord of this house. He's a duke at this point in the story, and he's walking through this country house. He's going to get some, he's walking between rooms, and he notices that all of the maids, when he walks past, like all the female staff, turn around and face the wall when he walks by. And he thinks this is kind of weird, and he's like, are they afraid of me? What's going on? And he tries to talk to some of them, and they're clearly terrified. And he's like, I don't understand. He doesn't understand. And so he talks to his valet about it, who is like, I mean, that's just how it is. That's people have traditions here. And then he talks to his wife, and his wife is like, look, do you want to know why this is? I'll tell you why the female servants do this. It's because with her grandmother instituted this policy after too many impressionable maids got into trouble with too many more worldly, wealthy men, and they were taken advantage of. And she said that the rule became that you are not allowed to talk to the female staff are not allowed to talk to any male members of the family or guests, or anyone who is not also staff. And and her grandmother did this to protect them. And Sam says, well, I can't believe this is so demeaning. And she's like, yes, but she was being cruel to be kind. That was the point. And so it shows that there are those layers, that Sybil's grandmother handled that situation in a way that her generation would have handled it, in a way that fit within her society, because she didn't have the power to stop the men from taking advantage of the servants, but she did have the power to stop the servants from talking to the men. And it's just such, and like Sam was like, this what you know, and so it's just a very interesting dynamic, and it shows those layers of like these interactions. There's this cold reason behind it, that that these servants were being abused, being maybe assaulted or coerced, or convinced. Maybe it wasn't technically assault, but they were being convinced to have relationships with these men and that they didn't want, and then they got pregnant and they were tossed out. And so Sybil's grandmother solved that problem in her own way. And then Sybil says, well, she'll talk with the head housekeeper and try and turn that rule around, because it's no longer necessary. And also that Vimes would handle that situation very differently, and Sybil as well would handle that situation very differently than Sybil's grandmother. Rather than blame the victim, they would blame the perpetrator. And so there's just one example of many that are in here where Vimes runs into this culture clash, because he just does not understand why people behave the way that they do, and why people treat him the way that they do, with this like exaggerated deference just because of his title. He doesn't like that. He's not comfortable with that. But he also finds ways to use that so that he can solve the inevitable murder, because all of these are murder mysteries to some degree. All of these books are mysteries, which is something that I really love about that. And Terry Pratchett pulls from different genres of mystery novel and mystery story to write these books. So they're not all exactly the same sort of style and genre. So this is sort of like a Manor House type mystery. And so with some really strong references to real historical events that are described in this fantasy setting. So yeah, love these books incredibly. So that's where I am in my reading. Those are my big updates right now. That's where I am in my reading. I am I've got my stack. Pardon the mess. I've got my stack of potential books for the next future legs of the race, whenever those drop. I'm hoping I can read my book, finish one of these books in time. It'll probably be the Pratchett, to be honest. I'm hoping to finish one of these in time to turn it in before this leg ends. But if I don't, I don't, and that's going to be okay, because there's so many. This is a marathon, not a sprint. There are so many legs to this race, and it's going to go on all month. So, one other thing, that a little announcement, I probably should have opened with this, but a little announcement. You may have noticed that I posted a short video of my cat and a book that we were reading together earlier this week. I'm gonna start doing more shorts of like my cats and the books that I'm reading, kind of tie those things together. I'm calling it Ms. Peeper's Catty Corner, because I do love a pun, and so I encourage you to watch those if you're interested. I created a playlist as well, so you can watch all those shorts in one place. I've only got 2 so far, but I'll be posting those. I'm shooting for about once a week on Mondays, so keep an eye out for those as well, in addition to my regular bookish content on Thursdays. So that's all I've got. I hope you're having a great reading month so far, a great start to the reading month, and a great start to the summer. And again, look in the description below if you want to see If you want to learn more about the Amazing Readathon and how you can participate, and if you'd like to be a lore keeper, we'd love to have you. But there are other teams as well if if you feel that's appropriate. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. In all seriousness, it's a lot of fun, and there's a great community around it. So I encourage folks to join if they're interested. And other than that, regardless of whether you join the readathon or not, whatever you do, please keep reading, and let me know if you've read the books that I talked about today and what you thought of them. And either way, I will see you in the next one.